Hi everyone! My name is McKenna and I was honored to be a part of the 2019-2020 cohort for Catholic Leadership Development. Today, in a short little video, I wanted to go ahead and share about my Capstone project. But before I jump into that story, I want to briefly introduce myself. I'm a junior at Washington University and I'm a double major in Middle Eastern Studies and Philosophy, Neuroscience, Psychology. In addition to that, I also minor in Arabic and I'm fascinated with the intersection of all of these things. So, with that in mind, and with the Catholic leadership development values of forwarding the common good through service, I discerned that I wanted to do some outreach in the local St. Louis community. So, here's my story about my project, its origin, how I produced it, and the impact that it had on me. Since the Syrian civil war officially began in March of 2011, families have suffered under brutal conflict that has killed hundreds of thousands of people, torn the nation apart, and set back the standard of living by decades. Now in its 9th year, the Syrian refugee crisis is the largest refugee and displacement crisis of our time. Every year, refugee families travel from Syria to the United States. And here in St. Louis, we are lucky enough to have a vibrant refugee community. Last year, one of my professors planned a delicious dinner at a local Syrian restaurant to connect with some local Syrian refugee high school students. Over baba ganoush, hummus, and falafels, the students and I immediately connected. With the help of my beginner Arabic, their impressive English, and later some fun time at a bowling alley, we chatted about silly things and serious things. Between spares, strikes, and me slipping all over the place, we continued to cultivate a friendship that crossed cultures and languages. It was a joyous day, and I left knowing I wanted to welcome my fellow neighbors and help as much as I could. In the fall semester, the same professor offered me to intern at the local high school. I would go to the high school 2 to 3 times a week and assist the students in their mainstream classes and with their English learning. Other days, I attended the ESOL classes, which stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages. In these classes, I got to help teach English and explain cultural nuances. Also, since the class size was much smaller and just ESOL students, I got to have a lot of intimate conversations. We talked about their transition to the United States and the difficulty integrating themselves into this brand new environment. They said things like, everything is different, the food, the music, the people, the roads, the jobs, the work. As I helped them with English and they sometimes helped me with my Arabic, I realized my passions were not only for teaching, but also for learning, and more importantly, for connecting. I also realized that I was just one person, and that there was over 12 Syrian refugees at this high school who needed support. So, for my Capstone project, I decided to found a tutoring program that connects WashU student tutors with these local Syrian refugee high school students in an interchange of language and mentorship. The title of my project is Alam, which is the Arabic word for knowledge. When transliterated to English, Alam is spelled I-L-M, which I use as an acronym for Interchange for Language and Mentorship. My goal was to facilitate an interchange between WashU students, many of whom who are learning Arabic, and the local Syrian refugees. The minute I saw the high school's complicated block schedule, though, I knew this was going to be no easy task. Coordinating the high school schedule with busy WashU student schedules was definitely a challenge, but I did what I had to do with the help of some color coding and Google Slides. First, I recruited 6 WashU students eager to help at the high school. I then met with each of them individually to discuss their major and to place them in classes that worked with their schedule. For example, one of my awesome tutors, Irene, is a pre-med and went on Tuesdays and Thursdays to chemistry or biology class. Her slide includes the times, the room number, and the students she works with. After individual meetings and a tutor orientation, I consolidated the individual schedules into one grand calendar that shows what tutors are going to what classes on what days, and also notes days like early dismissals and no school days that they need to be aware of. I was also fortunate enough to receive a generous grant from the Gephardt Institute for Civic and Community Engagement. This small change grant funded tutoring supplies such as binders and colored pens, sticky notes, and more, as well as snacks for tutoring sessions and a celebratory dinner at the end of the semester. Once the logistics were taken care of, the tutors made their way to the high school. Sometimes they helped tutor after school in the library, but most times the tutors sat side by side with the refugee high schoolers in their mainstream classrooms. They helped with vocabulary, with dense readings, and with connecting with the other students. Sometimes tutoring looked like this. When one of our students had this intense Connets project in which he had to graph Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc., Chris, a finance major at WashU, stepped up to the plate to walk him through the content vocabulary of Algebra 2 and help him graph this final product. Both students were extremely proud. Interacting with these students in the mainstream classroom opened all of our eyes to the nuances of education. Sometimes a math problem relies on some background understanding of the Lakers as a basketball team and ESPN as a TV network. Sometimes it was assumed that everyone knows what the Mayflower was, what happened in the Roaring Twenties, and why the US had its very own Civil War. But it was in these frustrating moments and during these hard revelations that the WashU tutors and the Syrian high school students bonded. And they realized that by helping each other, by communicating, by crossing these cultural and linguistic barriers, that they were building a better tomorrow. Through interchange, through connection, through service, and together forwarding the common good.